Hi guys, it's Ankita. Welcome to my very first video of 2022. I read some wonderful books last year, somewhere around 55 to 60. I haven't counted yet, but I do plan to make another video where I will list all of the books that I've read last year. But in this video, I am going to talk about my top 10 favorites of all the books that I read in 2021. And these are in no particular order. So let's begin. Devotions by Mary Oliver. This is a collection of Mary Oliver's poetry. These are selected poems. What I liked about this book is that it has poems right from the start of her career to the very end. So as you read her poems, as you progress through the book, you get to see how her poetry changed over the years. And what I liked about her poems are that they are so inspiring. Mary Oliver writes about nature, both the one that's around us and also the innate human nature. And she ties the both our nature, human nature, and the natural world so seamlessly and effortlessly that it is astounding. And this book was gifted to me by my friend, and we read these poems together over a period of 5 months. So we really savored these poems, and I loved every moment of it. The next one is Velodine by Catherine Applegate. This is an allegory for climate change. Such an imaginative story about a girl named Velodine who is very passionate, strong-willed, introverted girl, but she finds her voice in order to help endangered species. And the illustrations are beautiful. I read this book aloud, and let me tell you, it was quite an experience. I love this author's imagination. I love her ability to transform her imagination into words and create these beautiful, meaningful stories. And this one is really special. You might have heard about her other books, Crenshaw, which I haven't read. Wish Tree is another one. One and Only Ivan. And yeah, she's written quite a few really good books. Next one, On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Young. This book is a letter from the narrator to his mother who cannot read. In this book, the narrator confronts his mother about his difficult childhood and adolescence, and he does it with a compassionate tone. And it is this compassionate tone, along with the author's poetic writing, that makes this book truly unique. What I loved about this book is how the author has transformed his emotions into some phenomenal metaphors. Having said that, this book is definitely not for everyone, but if you are into literary fiction, then I highly recommend this book. Next one is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. This is a collection of 10 letters that the poet Rilke wrote to an aspiring poet. At the time when Rilke wrote these letters to the young poet, he was already a well-established poet, but he comes across as such a humble person in these letters, wherein he advises the young poet to make the most of his solitude, to make the most of his feelings, and to transform those feelings into art. And art in this case is poetry. Again, this is one of the treasures of literary fiction. I highly recommend if you are into literary fiction or if you are an artist of any sort. Next one is Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery. I think everyone on BookTube is reading this book. I highly recommend it. It is full of nature writing. But most importantly, it has one of the most vivacious, vibrant characters that I've ever come across, and that's Anne Shirley. She is so spirited, and she likes to romanticize every situation in her life. And she always finds herself in trouble, and there is such innocence to her that reading about her is a joy. And I also read the second book, which I've not included on this list, but if you think like the second book cannot get better than the first one, then you're wrong. It is so, so good. The second one is Anne of Avonlea. Moving on, We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Wow, this is one of the most bizarre and horrifying books I've ever read that does not contain any supernatural elements. This is a story about the Blackwoods, both the living sisters, and the dead ones who died of poisoning. And the narration in this book is so good that it will send chills down your spine. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This one is like Jane Eyre, but the narration and the technique of writing is what sets this book apart. And the narration is beautiful. It is such a beautiful Gothic read. So if you are into Gothic literature, or if you love Jane Eyre, which is again a Gothic book. So if you are into Gothic literature, I would highly recommend this book. I enjoyed this so much. I loved the plot, I loved the writing, I loved the emotions it evoked in me. I loved that it's a page turner. I really, really loved everything about this book. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This one, I honestly swear I did not like it as much when I was reading it, but as time is going by, I still think about this book. And I loved such books. I love books that manage to stay with me despite of me not making any effort to think about them. This is a dual timeline story in which we follow a woman named Gaia who chooses or is forced to live in isolation because of circumstances. And then when a murder takes place in the town, she automatically, or that's not the right word, but she becomes the suspect because she is mysterious and elusive, and so automatically everyone thinks that she must have murdered that guy. And obviously there's some history there, but the main reason is basically just assumptions. So it's basically a story about Gaia who wades through all the difficulties that life throws at her. The nature writing in this book is so good, and also what I liked about this is that it read like an American classic. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but there are some contemporary books that they feel like they have been written in another time, and that's how this one felt to me. Next one is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This definitely was one of the most entertaining and comforting books. Have you ever wondered what if you would have made a different life decision? What your life would have been like then? That's exactly what happens with the protagonist in this book, who is a woman who is absolutely unhappy with how her life is or where she is in life. And she gets a chance to live alternate lives. And she soon learns that none of those alternate lives are perfect either. I highly recommend this to those who are not in a good mental space. The last one on my list is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I've definitely butchered the last name, so please excuse me. This was the first book that I read in 2021, and I've never read this book before. Wow, it's such a good book. Cover to cover, this book is sheer perfection. Wow, the dedication. I love the dedication in this book. I love the illustrations. It's amazing how such a short work of fiction can be so touching. It's a story about a little prince, the one you can see on the book cover here, who lives on a tiny planet, and he meets the narrator when the narrator's plane crashes in Sahara Desert. And there the little prince and the narrator become friends, and the prince recounts his adventures right from the time when he leaves his planet, when he leaves his little planet, until the time he reaches Earth. There are so many moments in this book that I absolutely loved. One of them is the conversation between the prince and the fox. Yeah, it's so good. Alright guys, so those are the top 10 books of 2021. I did not include any rereads over here, so I only included the books that I read for the first time. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful 2022. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you next time. Until then, au revoir.